Hey everybody, I was downtown San Francisco today and I really wanted to make these clips down there. And I tried, but as usual, audio is the problem. There's so much going on, I can't. So here we are back in the Studio Hella, so that we can do okay audio and you can hear me without a lot of freaky sounds and interruptions. So here we go. Anybody who follows my feed, follows any number of van lifers' feeds, or people who are traveling in a vehicle, one of the common denominators is that we find ourselves regularly out of our comfort zone. It's a very different world when you're living out of a vehicle. It doesn't matter what kind of vehicle. It could be an upscale high top, big van. It could be a car. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're living in a vehicle traveling, it's its own unique set of challenges, and you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone all the time. It's just the reality, because you don't own a plot of land or space that's absolutely yours. You're always in the public domain one way or another. And so that's like the common denominator that we're all dealing with, especially if you're in urban areas, which is where I spend most of my time as a traveler. It's extra challenging because you've got to develop a sense for where you can park and not cause a problem and minimize getting the knock, which we all hate. Although I got to tell you, I've never had a knock where it was a problem. Actually, the only time I've had an obnoxious knock was a security guard. All the police have always been really cool and really polite and just tell me, "I'm sorry, you can't park here, sir." And I roll on. I'm not going to argue with them. Whether I think I could or not is irrelevant. I move on and just keep it cool. And it's just never a problem. But the knock is not what I'm talking about today, is not the point of what I'm talking about today. Today's video is aimed squarely at men. And the subject is proper etiquette regarding when you observe women who are traveling, especially appear to be traveling solo in a vehicle. And I couldn't agree more that solo women travelers who are in a van or an RV or what have you, we admire them, because it takes a lot more courage to do this as a woman traveling around, especially in urban areas, etc. But it doesn't matter where. The creeps are everywhere. It doesn't matter where. You could be on BLM land out in the middle of nowhere, and these guys turn up. And I know, because I know several women who travel solo, and they've told me the stories. It makes me mad every time. So, this video is directed at guys who, yes, they're super cool women, incredibly inspiring because they have the guts to do this, which I'm at the top of the van life food chain. An older male, Caucasian, I have the least to worry about. But for females, women of any age doing this is a tough deal for them. I can pull in anywhere with a beautiful view. I can throw open my back door, and unless I'm sitting out there, most time people don't just walk up. Although my rig is kind of a circus show, so yeah, I probably get a lot more people approaching, but that's because of the nature of this truck. But for a woman who is traveling in her vehicle or living in her vehicle, and just staying in one particular area, she has to think twice about backing up to a beautiful view and throwing open her double doors at the back for the day, or pulling up to a nice view on the side and opening the slider and getting the fresh air and everything. That I do that and I don't have to think twice about it. Well, they do, and here's why. The problem is, guys take that as an invitation. And sadly, creepy guys take that as an invitation. They see that as, ooh, she's open for business. It's really awful. And unfortunately, seems to be a lot of guys my age, in their 40s and 50s, they're the biggest creepers that do this. And, ugh, makes me angry. Because I know several women that are doing this, and they tell me the stories, and it's just, these guys ruin their plans for a day at the least, and they really frighten these gals at the worst, to where they'll drive another 100 miles that day that they didn't intend to, and that's just shitty. So here's the thing, guys. If you're somewhere, beautiful public beach or some area where there's lots of people, and you see a gal with a very gypsy looking, liveaboard van with the doors thrown open, unless she is sitting outside doing nothing but people watch and makes eye contact with you, don't approach. Just leave them alone, I mean, the comparison would be, now, let me back up, especially if they're not outside of their vehicle, would you be on a walk through your neighborhood and say there's a little house with a yard, your standard yard, maybe it's 20 feet deep, and on the front porch there's French doors, and it's a beautiful day, and the French doors are wide open, and you can see a woman in there enjoying her coffee, reading a book, whatever. You're walking down the sidewalk. Do you walk up to that porch and strike up a conversation like you have a right to talk to them just because their doors are open? Probably not. It's the same freaking thing when you just presume because the back doors are open or sliders open on a nomad type vehicle, and you see a gal in there. You have no right to just walk up and start and say, hey, nice rig, and do you have a YouTube channel? And I follow these builds, and what did you do for your build? This is not appropriate. It's not okay. It's very disrespectful. You have to, this is their home. You have to afford them the same kind of respect as if it was that house in the neighborhood with the French doors open. It's the same fucking thing. So the deal is, and I've talked to a few females about this, few women about this. I'm sorry if female's an offensive term. I never know what's right these days. I'm an old guy. Hope you can forgive me. The thing is, if they want to talk to you, they'll talk to you. They'll say hey, or they'll come over and approach you. There are many times where I park somewhere where there's a number of, van lifers, as we're predominantly known. And some are highly social, some are not. And, we open our doors. It's a beautiful summer day. You need some fresh air. Yeah, you want to air the rig out and enjoy it. And you shouldn't go talk to them. Let them seek you out. If they want to talk to you, they'll come talk to you. And that's the only way to be super respectful and not be a creeper, It makes them, most of them, pretty uncomfortable if you just approach and start talking to them like you're an old friend or like you have a right to talk to them, because you just don't. Women who do this, this whole lifestyle is an exercise in vulnerability. For women, it's extra vulnerable. And so imagine, basically imagine that's your daughter or your mom that's in that vehicle traveling around. Afford them the same respect that you would want other guys to afford them, and respect their space and their privacy, and just let them be. If they've got, especially if their van doesn't have anything on it, like a YouTube channel or an Instagram, anything, especially in that case, don't go approaching them. Just leave them alone. Let them enjoy their time and feel safe. It's a different story if they have, say, a Instagram or YouTube channel stuff on the side of their rig and they're sitting outside looking to be social. That's different. Like if they're parked up right by a sidewalk at a beach or a lake, they got all that stuff printed out on their rig like they're building a social media following, and they're sitting outside, that could be a different situation, to at least say, in that case, what you would do is, not walk right up into their space, but stop for a moment and say, "Excuse me, may I ask you a couple questions about what you're doing? Because I see you've got a YouTube channel." That's acceptable because they're outside. It's a little different. But boy, that's just about the only time that you should even take a shot at talking to them. And if your motivations are proper like that, where you just are curious because you admire that they're doing what they're doing, you can read their energy real quick if they want to talk to you. Just remember this, though. They, in general, will be polite even when they don't want to be. And so a lot of times they'll be talking to a creeper who's forced himself into the whole scenario, like the ways I was talking about, just walking right up like they have a right to and start talking. They can't just tell him to step off or get lost. They have to kind of make suggestions that, I have work to do now. I'm working online. That's not when you say, "Oh, what do you do for work online, on the road?" They're trying to tell you to move along in a polite way. And 90% of the time, they will keep up being polite. They'll keep letting you interrupt their process, what they need to do, and all the while being completely uncomfortable with what you're doing. And they do this because they can't risk pissing you off and you creeping on them for the rest of the day or following them when they leave. So you can't tell yourself, just because I'm a nice guy, I know I would never do anything wrong. And look, she kept talking to me. She kept answering my questions, yada, yada, yada. So she was cool with it. That's a stupid assumption. Well, it's an ignorant assumption, You should know better. If someone, really wants to talk to you that's doing this lifestyle, they'll drop everything. It'll be real obvious. They'll be very enthusiastic. But if they're being just polite and patronizing, especially as a woman, you should just move along. You should have just made it brief and go, But across the board, the simple thing is just respect their privacy. Don't approach that vehicle just because the doors are open and you see her in there. And it's a cute rig and she's a cute girl. You're like, "Oh, ooh, this is exciting." Keep that shit to yourself, okay? And if they have social media stuff on the rig, check that out. Don't go walking right up to them. So anyway, that's my rant for this week. It's something that's near and dear to my heart because I know a lot of women who travel solo. And I hear their stories, and it's upsetting. And I wish that guys would figure this out, Like I said, it's middle-aged guys that seem to be the worst creepers, the creepiest about it, and that just is very upsetting. So anyway, I think you get the message. And please, any women travelers who are watching this, say anything in the comments. If you think I'm saying something I shouldn't, or I'm off base somehow, please correct me. Please message me directly or in the comments, and I will certainly respond, because I really want to be an ally for my fellow travelers out here. So there you go. Hope y'all have a good weekend this weekend.